Okay, well, we are starting a new series called Abiding in the Presence of God, and it's called How to Grow, Learning to Express and Grow in Intimacy and Abiding is the full title, but it's really just abiding, just for a short title. Abiding just means living in intimacy. So let me get these. I got all these things in my way so I can advance my screen. Okay, so we have our calendar here. We got our Capitol event on Sunday. Um, Friday, I'll be teaching on faithfulness to the call. And then next week, Deborah and I will be switching weeks because I will be out of town. So Deborah's going to stay in my stead. Thank you for your continued seed. If you haven't continued to sow, please consider it. Every little bit helps us grow. This is our new meeting link. Hopefully, people know that we are on a new meeting link and they're not trying to get on class with the old link. But my phone's not ringing, so, but maybe it's not even turned up. So, when you think about intimacy, what is your definition? You can answer any or all of these. How do you express intimacy? How is it expressed to you? Do you have an intimate relationship with God? How did you learn how to be intimate with others or God? And do you look for someone who makes you feel good or adds value to your life? Anyone want to tackle any or all of these questions?
I look for someone who adds value
Okay.
and my definition of intimacy is knowing you internally or being able to um experience the other person in a way that isn't always openly presented. It's not what's on the outside.
Okay. Anyone else want to tackle any of these? Sharon?
Yeah, intimacy is similar to what Paige says. Just really getting to know the person, knowing their likes, dislikes, preferences. Just getting to know what even the triggers, what triggers them, and knowing as much as you can about that person, and then how do you express intimacy? Um, for me, expressing intimacy is just really showing um, my love for the person, and really listening to that other person, and seeing, what makes them um, what makes them feel loved, I guess, and what their likes are, and just really showing that and expressing that. I think that lets the person know that you are listening to them and you do um, care for them. How is it expressed to you? Mm, I'll skip that one. Not sure. Do you have an intimate relationship with God? I would say yes, I do. Um, and spending time with Him in Word, uh, study, um, praise and worship. And there's just times of quietness, stillness. So I enjoy those still moments and those quiet moments with God. How do you learn how to? Is that oh how did you learn how to be intimate with others or God? How did I learn? I guess over time you just you just kind of glean things along the way. I think just really learning from my elders, such as you, Apostle Charlene. You've taught me some things on how to be a friend, how to be close to others and not isolate yourself. So I've come along in that area, I think. How to be intimate with God. Just really, again, getting into the Word and learning to know God as much as possible because we'll never get to know Him completely, but learning about who He is, learning about His names, and just being intimate, being close, and then following His will, you know, for my life as much as possible. So that's my thoughts.
Okay. Anyone else want to share? Okay. The last question is kind of when you think about this class and intimacy and relationships and how to grow in intimacy, what would you like to get from this study on intimacy with God and others? So I can make sure that it's covered, or not just me, just all the teachers, that one of us covers the topic that you want to learn. Is there any specific thing? Challenges?
Is my water too loud? Like, do I need to turn my sink off? Whatever.
I I don't
So
hear I don't hear anything.
mine would be, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Mine would be how how to regain intimacy once that connection with the person is lost. Like maybe something happened and you guys kind of had a falling out or something, how you get back to that place after maybe the trust has been broken or time has passed, or maybe not time has passed, but something happened, something traumatic or something. Like even with God, like I know, if a person passes away, a lot of people will blame God. How do you get back to that place where it used to be?
Okay. Good one. Anything else people want to learn?
For me, it would be trust. I think the biggest part of intimacy is trusting to let that person in to be intimate with them. So,
Okay. I'll share this with the other teachers, so if I don't get to it, or they will. Anything else? Okay. So this is really an overview of the class so that we know where we're going in the class. And if you want to get ahead, these are the Bible verses and the topics that we're going to be discussing. Today, I'm going to kind of give just an overview of the class, talking about some hindrances in intimacy, which trust and broken fellowship and some of the things you've already talked about, is covered in there, and just an overview of what intimacy is and how these C words are going to play out in the various weeks to come. The next week, we're going to just have Wendy and Teresa, as I'm gone, talk about the charge for intimacy and change by love. They're going to select their Bible verses, but all the other verses and text I kind of went through and talked about really abiding. If you want to be intimate with someone, God or someone, you have to learn how to live in that place, stay in that place, not be moved from that place. If you have broken trust, how can you move in closer so that the the even though you may be hurting, how can you still stay in the place that you are so that you can work through the conflict? And that comes through abiding. And so we'll be talking about that through this series. So the various teachers we'll have these topics and we'll be talking towards them. I have several things that I have for all of so several things I have for some of these, not all of these. And so where there's other teachers and I have some input, I will share that during the class. But I will make sure that your questions are asked that you've given. And if you come up with other questions that you have that you want us to make sure that we cover in this section, just let us know or let me know. So the purpose of this class is to, no matter where I put this, it's in the way. The purpose of this class is to grow in intimacy with God and others by having a revelation of what it means to be known by God and people by abiding in the presence of God. And so when you think about this knowing, it's a three way of knowing. We think about if you're intimate and you're getting married, it's just you and your husband, you and your wife. But there's also a third person that's united there. We have a relationship with God, they have a relationship with God, and we have a relationship with God. Sometimes we look at our partners to fulfill all of our needs, and that's unfair. The only way your needs are going to be fully satisfied if you're a believer is in Christ. But a lot of times when you don't trust God, you find satisfaction other places. And sometimes those places are good places, but sometimes those places are bad places and leave holes. And so we're going to be talking about this three-way communication. We really talked about it earlier on about the levels, it's really the dimensions of intimacy. And many times you guys did pretty good in answering in that you touched on all three levels. It's a physical level, a soul level, and a spiritual level. And a lot of times we only think about intimacy in one dimension, which is physical. You guys kind of touched on all three, so that's really good that you understand that there are kind of three different aspects. That's what the class is really going to be talking about and delving into those three levels. And since we'll be spending most of the time, you'll see in the spiritual aspect, because this is a Bible study, by the way, many waters cannot quench love, neither can floods drown it. If a man offered for love all the wealth in his house, he would be utterly despised. And so when you think about this, that you can't buy love, you can't buy intimacy. And the reason the way I looked at this was just think about people who try to buy it in the one dimension, which is physical pornography or buying sex or sex trafficking. If you could buy love and buy intimacy and everything would just be well, those would not be kind of looked upon as a bad way if that was the way, the one dimension of finding love and intimacy through sex, through physical means. You cannot quench love through a one-dimensional aspect of intimacy because you, as you said, that somebody, one of you said that you want to be heard. You want to be seen. You want to have a place where you can connect and grow together. You want to, I think somebody else said, really just studying together to get a spiritual aspect of your relationship and spiritual needs. You want to be known. And we talked about known, which I'll review again, is this yada in the Bible, which is really just, I think Paige said, just being not just seen on the outside, but really known, but in a way of being known so that that knowing is satisfied by that person, that they know that you don't like orange flowers. And so they're not going to send you orange flowers for your Mother's Day or your birthday or something like that because they know you. They know what you like. They know what makes you happy. There's a knowing so that when you come home you just had a great day at the office. You don't have to share all the background story about what happened because you've already talked about it. When you walk in the door, it's like, how did the meeting go? Did it go well? You don't have to be explaining all the stuff that you had to do because there's a knowing. Your excitement is their excitement. Your victories are their victories. You can't buy that. And that's what this is really talking about. You can't quench that type of love, and it can't be drowned out once you really have it. And even if you offer to pay for it, you can't. You can't pay for it. You can't pay for intimacy. That is something that you have to grow. But similarly, the waters of intimacy, you can't drown it out and it can't be quenched. And that's how come it's going to be so important to understand how to resolve conflict, and learn when trust is broken, not to have the love, the intimacy quenched because of the conflict. How do you stand under conflict to get to a point where the relationship is more important than the issue? That's really a place of intimacy. And learning how to grow to get to that point. One of the things I've asked the teachers to do with each lesson is really to give practical how-tos, practical steps in how to grow in any dimension that they want to do, so that you have some tools to help you with communication, or have tools to help you to get over hurts, whatever the topic is going to be, so that you have real life practical things to take away. You don't have to do all of them, but if you can just practice one to grow in your area of intimacy, that's the job of the teachers that they've been challenged to do. This text highlights that the enduring and priceless nature of true love. When we really truly understand the love that God has for us, and that love that he wants us to share with other people, it's priceless. And if we understand that the intimacy and the person that we with and God is priceless, the disappointments and the hurts and the pains and the things that are shattering each other, you might have a better chance, because you will understand this: when you hurt, when if I have a husband and I hurt, his heart hurts. And when I do something to hurt him and I'm squeezing his heart, I feel the pain. That's intimacy, where you can understand the pain that you're inflicting on that other person. You understand it because you feel it yourself. That's intimacy. That's the place where God feels the hurts of his people. He feels your pain. He feels your suffering. We want that same type of intimacy, so that, like in repentance, we're sorry, not because we did wrong and we got caught, but we understand we hurt the heart of God, and that squeezes our heart. That's intimacy. That's the point where we're seeking to grow, where we can feel the pain of those that we are with, and we don't want that pain to continue. Many times for me, I feel the hurts of others, even sometimes when I walk into a room and I could, I'm hurting. I mean, I'm literally, my heart is killing me. I'm hurting. I feel like weeping. And when I begin to pray, I pray until my heart stops hurting. And I'll know that the situation in the room, or whatever was happening in the room, has been answered, because I'm no longer feeling that pain. So God allows me to feel that. And when I pray it off and it's like, whew, my goodness, that was a hard one. That's intimacy. Where you can feel the pain of the person that you are in relationship with. That's what we want to get to a place. So this is my definition with some help of intimacy. It's a long one. Sorry, Amanda. Intimacy is in a relationship is becoming one with another and living in the state of unconditional love, fully supported and secure enough to share your vulnerabilities without shame, guilt, or fear of being judged. Intimacy in a relationship is a feeling of being close, connected, supported in three dimensions. We talked about the three dimensions earlier on in our prior classes: spiritually, emotional, and physical. And we'll go over that model again. We'll see that again. But you want, as you were explaining intimacy, each of you touched on a part of physical, spiritual, emotional. Many times we learn intimacy through physical, but that's only one dimension. And if we only have one dimensional relationships, we have a void in our spirit and in our soul or emotions. We get that void. We have to be satisfied in all three areas of our life. Intimacy in a relationship is being one in three dimension, and oneness is rooted in the covenant love, which is intentionally and selflessness, which starts with a relationship with God. So my premise in learning intimacy is learning intimacy with God, and learning that closeness with God will enable you to feel fulfilled in God. And so you're not searching for that identity and fulfillment in someone else. You're looking to share. I think that was one of the questions I have. Are you looking to someone to make you feel good? Or are you looking for someone who's going to add value? You want that value add. If you're a woman or a man, you want someone who's going to support you, not someone who's going to bring you down, not someone who's going to just use you and take advantage of you. You want someone who's got vision and dreams, and those visions and dreams are in alignment with your visions and dreams, so that you're both going to the same place in an excited way. That's that oneness we're talking about. To be intentional and growing in that relationship. As I think about this, intimacy is the three-stranded cord between God, another person, and you, based on knowing, which is that yada word, another with the desire to be known. You have to want to be known by someone, and you have to want to know someone. You have to want to know God, just as God knows you, but you have to want to get to know Him. If you want to have intimacy and an intimate relationship with God, you have to have a desire to know Him. If you want an intimate relationship with a person, you have to have a desire to know Him. You have to have a desire to expose yourself, to be open to that. And that openness for me, if I'm with God, I am with God, and I'm asking Him, is this somebody that I need to draw close to? No, you don't need to draw close to that person. Okay, well, I'm not going to waste my time. If you're telling me that's not the one, I'm not going to waste my time. That's why that knowing God is so foundational for me, because my decisions are being made by God. What do you think? No, He's a setup. Okay, well, I'm not going to go into a setup, that's for sure. But if you don't have the God connection and intimacy with God, you're left with your own thoughts, your own feelings, your own past experiences. Maybe you'll use a friend, but God knows the beginning from the end. And so really involving Him in that relationship is important. So again, I'm not going to go over this. We kind of went over this earlier in the prior classes, but knowing is the word yada, the total knowledge of being known and to be and to know. It also includes sexual intercourse. It also includes sharing life. That sharing life is abiding. You're living together. You're being fruitful with one another and in love. It's dedicating ourselves to God and a person to engage them with a committed commitment, love, and affection. When you know someone, when Adam said he knew Eve, he knew her sexually, he knew her knowledge way, he knew that what God created her for. It was an internal knowing that he had in that connection. Showing mercy and understanding the needs and taking care of them. That goes to the thing where if someone hurts you because of pains in the past, you'll just put another wall around your heart and throw them out. But can we show mercy on people that hurt us or causes us pain? Can you work through those conflicts when someone hurts you, so that you can learn healthy communication strategies when things are broken? Instead of continually to break and continue to have these subtle digs that you say to a person because they hurt you. You have to learn to show mercy. And then acting justly with others by faithfully living in a covenant relationship. Covenant relationship and intimacy is important because covenant says this: if Manda fails, I'm in covenant with her. I won't back out because she didn't do her part. I'm going to make up the difference. That's a covenant relationship where I'm going to continue to do my part even if you fail. That's what God has with us. He has that covenant relationship where we fail all the time. But he says, I'm not going to back up from you. I'm going to continue to be there for you. And so that's how come having that dimension with God is important. Having that dimension with others are important. And then having the three dimensions, God, others, and you, work together with all three dimensions, spiritually, physically, and emotional, or with the soul, is going to be important. So that's really the overview that we're going to be discussing today. This might look familiar where I had these circles where you have the covenant relationship, which is the spiritual center. You have the soul, and these are different ways that you can be intimate. If you're talking about soul intimacy, you can talk about being intellectual with the person. You want someone who's going to have the same type of intellect that you're going to have. They're going to challenge you mentally. They're not going to be someone that, you like to talk about Mars and Jupiter and science, and they don't even know what a star is. That might not be an intellectual conversation that you can have with someone, and maybe they don't know anything about anything. So how intimate will you be able to be if intellectually you can't even engage? And so we talked about this as it relates to boundaries. So you have the flesh, which is the physical realm, and these are the various types of intimacy that you can have when you're talking about the flesh or carnal or things that are on the outside, the most outer ring. And a lot of times, the flesh is the one dimensional model that people go to. They want to have somebody that have fun. They want someone that can support them emotionally. They want a friend. They want sex. This is one dimensional relationship. And a lot of times, many people don't get past this dimension because of hurts, pains, and hangups. They never break in to the second level, which is the innermost. Talk about emotional, your mental intellect, your imagination, and being creative, learning how to communicate, learning how to solve conflicts. Communication and learning how to resolve issues in a healthy way actually does draw you closer to the person. But many times people say, "Well, we have a conflict. We gotta call it quits because we can't have a resolve." working for the resolve is how you grow in intimacy. But both sides with God is going to be the only way that you learn how to do it. You can't talk at each other, you have to talk with each other. And there's a lot of different strategies. They have this thing called 333 where Paige will talk for 3 minutes, and then her boyfriend will talk for 3 minutes, and then the last 3 minutes you're sharing a minute and a half each about what you thought about what the other person said, not judging, being open, and keeping an open mind about the things. Many times when you're in conflict, you're listening for things that you can jump on and disagree with. That is not listening to learn, that is listening to respond. You have to get out of that type of listening. If you really want to be intimate with someone, listen to learn. Don't listen to respond, because the response is they say 5 minutes worth of stuff. You hear one thing you don't like, and that's the only thing you focus in on, and you slam the person because you just want to respond to that one thing you disagree with. And so the next level is really spiritual, where the commitment and covenant comes, where you're sharing faith, where you're sharing the same spiritual walk, and including God in your relationship, including God in your family, including God in everything that you're doing, because He's the center of your life, and that makes Him the center of your relationship. But if He's not the center of your life, and you think you're making Him the center of your relationship, that's not going to work, because He has to be your center to make it our center, or else you're going to have some unbalance. And so this is where this part comes in, where you have God is the spirit part, the other is the soul part, and the me is the body part. You need all three of those operating together. So true intimacy consists of spiritual oneness, soul or friendship oneness, and physical or body oneness. When you get all three dimensions, you are working in a place of true intimacy. Okay, so just remember that as you're moving through relationships. If you're in a relationship with someone and you're just body or one dimensional, just think about if you're in a one dimensional relationship, think about these other two and see if there are things that are void inside of you because these other two areas are not being addressed in your life. And then begin to address them, begin to include one of the dimensions. Just add a dimension and make it a two-dimensional relationship, and then add the third dimension and see if you have a better um time with intimacy, because you're satisfying your whole self, not just your body, not just your soul, not just your spirit, but all of you is being satisfied. Any questions on any of that? Is that good for everyone? So, as it relates to these three areas in the class, as I said, this is an overview of the class. And so, this is how that breaks out into the class. We have the background information, which I'm providing you today, charge for intimacy, and a charge for change by love is kind of still some background information. And then we're going to have 3 classes on physical, 2 classes on soul, and then spiritual, where the spiritual and the soul will have some intertwining between the two. So it's not a sharp line between the two. And it just really depends on the teacher. But I'm going to seek to stay to these lines when I'm teaching so that we can address some soul issues like learn to trust, to let them in after the trust has been broken. That is really something that we can talk about, and how to regain broken intimacy. So that would be in that soul realm that we would address those types of issues. But I meant, well, we can do some of it maybe in the physical, but I think I would stick to the soul realm to try to answer those questions. And I think I'm teaching at least one of those classes, so I'll make sure that your questions are there. If you're one to blame God, I will put that on the spiritual end in that, in that last block, and when you're angry with God and you don't want to listen to him because you don't trust him, that's a spiritual issue. And so I'll put that one in that block of our teaching. So this is how the teaching will play out in the weeks to come as it relates to the three. Now, I wanted to talk about hindrances to intimacy. We have a lot of things that we can do to hinder our relationship, to stop us from a loving relationship. And I came up with, I don't know, about 8 C words. But if you think about this level of intimacy, it looks like my last level dropped out. It's healthy and secure in this outer ring. So the inner ring that you have here is really where you're being in an abusive relationship, intimidation, there's isolation, physical aggression and threatening, belittling, gaslighting. All of those are abusive tendencies that will have you isolate. Instead of being intimate, you will isolate. We want to get out of this abusive ring. If you're in an abusive relationship and you find yourself isolating in relationship because you probably have some of these issues that are here to deal with those things. The next one is insecure. Insecure relationships, you have jealousy, criticism, you don't talk well. There's betrayal there. That's one of the things we talked about, how to build trust after, betrayal or being broken. This is going to have you be insecure. So if you're insecure and you have an unhealthy relationship, it's going to be hard to connect with someone when you're insecure. This is why it's going to be so important to have that connection with God to get you secure so that you're not going to let people dominate you or crush you, because you want to be secure in God and you want to learn this to have healthy relationships. You're not going to let people criticize you. You're not going to allow the continued drama and dominance and control. And so that's going to be insecure, which is going to have a whole lot to do with not wanting to be intimate. If someone's criticizing you, you don't really want to hold their hand and love them. But that's one of the exercises I'm going to give you. You're going to see today. Now, that's going to be hard. Amanda and I are fighting. And this isn't just male, female. You can be intimate with people, like, that not sexually, but just intimate with people that you love and you want them to know you and they know you. Manda and I are fighting, and I want to get closer to Manda. I want to know who Manda is. I want to be her friend. I want us to have an open relationship. We can agree that our relationship is more important than the argument. So, in an argument, try this. Hold the person's hand that you're arguing with. That's going to be pretty tough to do because you don't want to be touched, you don't want to be around them, you want to push them away. But if you're saying the relationship is more important than the argument, when you begin to touch each other, that's going to be an agreement that's happened. This is actually a spiritual power. And so when you're touching, that should either it's going to do one of two things. You're both are going to get more angry, or you're both are going to calm down because the touch is bringing in another dimension that your words have a less value than that touch, you know? Sometimes a person, when they try to, when they're arguing, they might put their hand on it, on their shoulder, and you're like, get off me, don't touch me, because you know if they touch you, that's going to shift because you're coming in close. Make it a point when you're talking. Don't do this if you haven't agreed with this. Don't don't touch the person if you haven't agreed before the argument that, hey, when we get in an argument, I want us to let's hold hands. So one of us is going to have to suck up our pride and reach for that other person, and hopefully that'll make that other person calm down. I know sometimes when people are really upset, if I can get my hands around them and hold them, they fight me for a while, but then they just kind of break and relax and cry in my arms because of that touch. That's a healthy touch, which goes to the outside realm. You're committed. You want to communicate. There's a trust there. There's an intimate affection. That is healthy, is where you start going into the realm of intimacy. We want to be in that outer realm. And so to be in that outer realm, you have to do things differently than you have when you isolated or when you were insecure. You want to be healthy, so you want to do healthy things to pull that relationship so that you are in a place of security and intimacy. So, what are some hindrances to intimacy? The first, as we always talked about, is communication. You have an inability to express oneself, supposed to have been oneself, in a positive, healthy manner. And so we have to be able to express ourselves so that we confront problems, we confront challenges in a and not in a unhealthy way, but in a healthy ways. But the reason why, of course, you have challenges because you handle communication in unhealthy ways, which ends in unresolved conflict, which creates an atmosphere of insecurity or isolation. You have to learn to communicate. You have to learn to fight through throwing your hands up and walking away and just say, "Come on, let's just sit down. Let's just this let's walk through this so that we can resolve this. I know we can resolve this." Conflict does not mean rejection. Conflict means you have a disagreement, you're not seeing the same things, but now you have the opportunity to learn to see what the other person sees. That's what you should look at it, as opposed to looking at it as I've got to win, you've got to lose. This isn't a competition. Probably another C. A hindrance to intimacy is competition. Anyway, confrontation feels like an attack or rejection, which shuts a person down. We talked about that. We have to learn not to be confrontational. We want conflict, but we don't have to be confrontational. The difference is this. You did this, you did that. You always cut me off. You. Honey, I feel like I don't understand, and I need your help in allowing me to see what you see. It's me focused, not you focused. That de-escalates an argument already because you're not pointing all the fingers at them and they're the problem. You're the problem. You're the one that doesn't understand. So, honey, help me to understand because I'm not seeing it. I want to see this from your perspective. That's a confrontation, but it's healthy, not unhealthy. That's a way to handle conflict, which is next one. We can have these internal conflicts, anxiety. We have hatred or abuse, or we're fighting, or bitterness or resentment, or a whole bunch of other conflicts that makes the relationship hard. If you're going in here and you have a relationship, I have a relationship with Sharon, and I'm like, man, she's lying. She's sitting there telling me, oh man, this and this, and inside I'm saying, I don't believe a word she's saying. She's just lying. Yeah, that conflict is not going to really help with intimacy because you've already made a decision that you're not going to believe them no matter what they say. And so they might as well just save their breath because that internal conflict is not even letting that person in because you've already determined that you're not going to listen and you're shutting them down and you've already decided that this is a loss. Well, you don't want to get intimate with someone if you've already shut them out. You're back to insecure or isolate. You've backed down to those two levels. Challenges. When you have financial challenges, employment challenges, family, illness, busyness, all of these causes stress, which causes challenges in intimacy. You come home from work, you got to wash dishes, the baby's dirty, your floor is all messed up, you're tripping all over everything, and he wants you to sit down and do whatever, and you're like, dude, leave me alone. Don't you see? Why don't you help me with something? That's not going to help with intimacy. That's going to cause an argument. So these challenges have to be dealt with. These are real. These are real life challenges that causes hindrances in intimacy. Control. If you're a controlling person, you like to dominate, you like to intimidate, you like to manipulate. That does not really work for intimate relationship. No one wants to be controlled. No one wants to be vulnerable with a person who's trying to control them. That's just not a recipe. You're talking about isolation and insecure behavior. That's what control is. It's based on I don't trust you. I don't know the right thing, but I trust me more than I trust you. So I'm not releasing this. I'm going to just dominate you. That doesn't really work well with intimacy unless you have, which is unhealthy, but a master slave or a mentality where some people just like to be told what to do. They don't want to think for themselves. They're just used to being controlled. They usually have a victim's mentality. That's not healthy. You don't want a person like that. That's not building intimacy with a person who wants to be a victim. That's not really what we're going for here for intimacy. You're looking at level abuse or unhealthy relationship. Then childhood wounds. See this all the time in marriage, pre-marriage counsel, where they're bringing all of these wounds into the relationship and you talk about them and they don't want to talk about them, the abuse, the trauma, the home life that they had. We do an assessment for that, and there's so many childhood wounds that people don't want to face. If you don't want to face the wounds, you're going into this marriage with a bunch of baggage that's going to be triggered. And so just letting them know that these things are there, just because you don't want to deal with them, don't mean they're going away. And so dealing with those wounds, dealing with current trauma, mental illness, emotional instability creates walls. If you're dealing with PTSD, you're going to have a hard time with intimacy. If you're going to be triggered when you smell the scent of perfume, or you had a girl that I don't know what kind of car it was, but every time she saw this particular car, she said it was an indication that she was to marry this guy. And I said that is not the indication of what that car means. It just means it's a lot of blue cars on the road. That is not an indication that God's telling you. And having to break that mindset off of her that this was what this blue car meant. It was crazy. And then cycles, unhealthy patterns, habits formed, which are impenetrable walls, negative strongholds in the mind that causes us to repeat the same negative behaviors. Cycles will hinder intimacy because they will trigger you. And once you're triggered, you will put up walls. Once you put up walls, there's no closeness. And if there's no closeness, there is no intimacy. So, like I said, I could come up with more, but were just 8 hindrances to intimacy that we need to work on to begin to draw near. How do you work on these? With God. Getting intimate with God so He can help you with your traumas, help you with understanding why you have to have control, having you be healed from childhood wounds. I mean, God can do so many things if we work on those relationship with him and trust him and build that intimacy with him to deal with our stuff so that we don't have all these baggages and carrying a bag of mess. And so, how do you grow in intimacy? I put this vapor word. The first day, V, valued. You grow in intimacy by love, and intimacy cannot be brought. We saw that in Solomon. You can't buy it, you can't work for it. The end state of any man is despised when you do try to buy your way into love and intimacy. You have to value love. You have to desire it. You have to want intimacy, not one dimensional, but you have to desire all three levels of intimacy and you have to work for it. But if you don't value it, if you don't value your spirit, intimacy, spiritual, you won't go after it. So you're settling for a two-dimensional relationship. And that if that's what you want to do, there, according to my definition, you will have a void in your life. According to Christian, being a Christian, where God is this be the center, you're walking on eggshells by not valuing having that spiritual dimension in your relationship. And then agape, there's three-stranded cord. Agape, of course, is unconditional love from God. The only way that you can forgive someone a betrayal that has cheated on you, that has lied to you, that has whatever it is that you say is you'll never put up with, is through agape love. There's no other way you can forget anyone unless you have unconditional love for that and that comes from God. And when it comes from God, you can pour that on people so they will do things to you. And it's not saying that you don't work on these things, that hopefully you'll have a mate that wants to work on these things and not continue to abuse you. But I can tell you that if you work on your side, even when your spouse or significant other does not change, I can guarantee you this, you will have a peace about you because none of these things will move you. I can tell you that from experience that it's a game changer. It really is a game changer. And then you want to do acts of service. When you have unconditional love, you can do things for your abuser and serve them out of brotherly love and affection and the friendship. And then there's eros, which is that erotic and passionate love. And so when we talk about growing in love, agape, you want to mix it with an intimacy. There's those three layers again: spiritual, physical, and then that soul realm. You want that agape. You want that three strands to help you grow in intimacy. And in purity and humility. You have to have a humble heart and be pure and want clean hands and clean hearts to begin to understand. You want purity in your relationship. You don't want lies. You don't want deceit. You don't want to be hypocrisy. You don't want to be judgmental. You want to be pure and humble. You want to not be proud. You need to learn to submit, learn to surrender. That's how you're going to grow in intimacy, where purity and humility is what you're desiring. And then offered. You want to offer true love and intimacy because when you offer it, it will become unshakable. As we see in Song of Solomon, when you read that text, it's a metaphor of love that cannot be quenched. Intimacy is offered as a gift. You have to offer it as a gift, not as a manipulation strategy, not as a anything else. It's offered sacrificially as a gift, and it's an enduring gift. True love and intimacy will endure through heartaches and trials. Reciprocity is intimacy with God and others. You want it to be reciprocal. You want to draw near to God so he can draw near to you. You want to draw near to your spouse so he can draw near to you. It's a reciprocal relationship. And so to grow in intimacy, maybe you don't want to grow in the all of vapor, but is there one thing here that you can say in this class, I want to learn blah, 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 whatever that is, and take this class to understand that particular value that's valuable to you and work it out and to grow in your area of intimacy and allow God to change your heart, change your view of how you are growing in intimacy with people, growing in trust with people, and so that you can really understand that you can have intimate relationships. And so these are my how to's. I'm going to give you to close. In closing, I'm going to give you 4 points that you can work on, not all four, just one, to grow in intimacy physically. So prioritize non-sexual touch. That would be a way that you can grow in physical intimacy. That every time you touch them doesn't mean you want to have sex. It just means I want to touch you. I want to have that non-sexual touch and non-sexual affection. Unplug from technology. Don't go around the person when you're around them and text on the phone. Put your phone away. Make a decision when you come home and or when you go out on that date that you're going to keep your phone in your pocket or keep it in the car. Keep it in the car. There's nothing that important. If you're in that time of trying to connect, put your phone down. Get it out the way, and don't do this on this physical thing in the bedroom. Go another room, because if you're in the bedroom and you're touching, and it's just going to be a slippery slope downhill. Go out on the porch or go out on a walk or go to a lake or something, just to kind of make a distraction-free zone so that you can focus on that other person. And then you can maintain a schedule of quality time. You can say that this is going to be dedicated time for us. I know for a while, Irv and I, we used to have Friday nights. We would have as our quality time that we would do. This was well before the kids were born. Because when the kids come, you can forget about quality time. You have 3 kids, things just got kind of busy, but that's an excuse. Probably still should have done something, but you have to continue to have that quality time and then handle conflicts constructively. This is where I was talking about. You don't want to treat that person like their competitor. You want to treat them like they are your partner. And so learn to hold hands in conflict and remember oneness. Just touch, touch their shoulder, touch their hand, look at each other's eyes. I mean, all of that diffuses an argument. People, it's just a magical touch is magical. It's magical. Even when you're arguing, if you just touch somebody, it takes it down a notch when they get out of their rage. That's but so those are 4 things you can do. Emotionally, these are 4 things. Not all of them, just take one of them. Practice being vulnerable. Share parts of yourself you usually hide, such as your fears, your insecurities. Now, I wouldn't say to do this on your first date, but as you're growing in an intimate relationship and you're getting to a place of seriousness, practice the vulnerability that you can begin to lay yourself bare. And engage in a deeper conversation. Go beyond the small talk and ask open-ended questions. Really want to learn your partner's dreams, their goals, what they're going through daily in their emotions. Just don't come in and turn the television on and sit and watch TV. No, take the time to engage. And I know with the social media and all the videos and all, we don't know how to be a friend. We don't know how to just take time in silence and just be. And it's okay to be. Active listening, we talked about. Listen to learn, not to respond. Don't listen to try to fix your spouse. You're not Dr. Phil. just active listening, just listen, even, me for a pastor, so do you want my feedback? I'm listening. Well, of course I want your feedback. That's why I'm telling you. Well, I don't want to make that assumption because sometimes you just want to vet, you know. I'm not here just to fix people. I'm here to listen. And so you have to give people what they want, not what you think they want, but what they want. It's about them because they're the one that's having the communication challenges or the meltdown. And so you're being there for that person. And then show appreciation. It's nothing like being thankful. I am seeking to do that more often, saying nice things to people. That's kind of hard because I'm like, well, you already know what you do well. Why I got to tell you? But I know that that's not right, that people don't know what they do well. And so I'm learning the practice of appreciation and showing, setting that positive atmosphere. And these are some signs that you can look for about emotional intimacy. So you can look at those. If you don't know what that means, you can have these quick 14 points to help you. But these are four things. Again, just pick one, not one in every area possibly, but if you want to grow, these are practical things that you can do. And then spiritual intimacy for practical things, practice presence. Include God in consistently in your relationship by asking his input. God, what do you think? What should I wear today? Is usually a question I would ask for years. I said, what do you want me to wear today? What do you think today? Just first thing in the morning, hey, what's going on? How are you feeling today? Practice presence, devotion, spend individual time in prayer, praise, and worship because you can't have it in a relationship if you ain't doing it by yourself. You want to draw that person into a relationship that you have, and they want to draw you into the relationship they have. And that's where that unity comes in, that oneness, because you both have had that experience and presence. And then group study, study the Bible or have biblical discussions, have a word of the day that you sit around and you kind of discuss and say, hey, what do you think about this? And just, it doesn't have to be thirty minutes of discussion, just including God in your day helps with that spiritual connection. And if someone's angry, give them a word. Remember that devotion we had, and to get them to calm down. And then contemplative prayers, just take a walk and worship and just be quiet and just listen. What is God saying in that music? What is God saying in that trees? Or he's using all creation. What is he saying right now? And so these are ways that you can connect and grow in that spiritual intimacy. So when you think about it, as we close, are we ready to be a bride and an intimate bride? When you think about intimacy, it comes in six flavors. It's a covenant, it's a commitment. You got to communicate. It's compassion, it's closeness, and it's conflict. These are areas that we can look at to reflect in our relationship of growing in intimacy and growing. A bride of Christ doesn't mean a female. God calls the church his bride, so that's including male and female. So we have to learn these C's and reflect on these C's in our closeness with people and trying to draw in closer to them. And so that we can understand what we need in intimacy and how that person, because they need it in all three areas too. So help one another. I like this Walt Disney quote where it says, the way to get started is to quit talking and begin doing. And so we talk about, I want to be intimate with people, but we ain't doing anything. Do one of the practical things in the spirit, in the physical, in the soul, or in the spirit this week. Just do one of them and see if that makes you feel any closer to the person that you're going out with or with God, whichever area you're going to work on to get that intimacy. This is that Song of Psalms verse again. Many waters cannot quench love, neither can floods drown it. If a man would give all the substance of his house for love, he would utterly be condemned. He's condemned because no matter what you try to give, you can't buy love. You have to invest in it. Make the investment. Just don't talk about wanting to be intimate. Just don't talk about wanting a relationship. Begin to do something to move you closer to having that intimate relationship with God. That's what we're seeking to do with this curriculum is to use biblical principles to get you from isolation. And if you're in isolation, maybe we'll get you to insecurity. And if you're into insecurity, maybe we can get you from insecurity to intimacy. Move up a level, move closer out that realm in some area of your life. That's the goal of this study. Any questions, comments, or concerns?
Well, good points made. One that stood out to me that I definitely would probably try to work on, which I think is going to be a stretch for me, is when is touching in times of conflict. I don't want to be touched. I'm just being honest, but that one really like jumped out at me. It's like, oh yeah, that probably is one that I can really definitely ask God to give me some strength on that and work on that area. That may help for sure.
Well, talk to Jeff before you do it so he ain't shocked and have a heart attack.
Of course,
You
I
know,
heard that
let
piece. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Got to both be on board. I know.
yeah. Yeah, let him know that you're doing this for you and you need his help is how you approach that topic. Not you don't do it like, man, you need to calm down when you're arguing. I'm going to touch you. No, that's not the way you're going to get that done.
Thanks for the heads up. Yeah,
Y- y-
those key points. I will
Yeah,
definitely
you're,
do that.
you're welcome. Anything else? Comments, suggestions? Well, next week, oh, go ahead, Paige.
I thought it was interesting how some of the points relate to uh work, like that one circle thing that you had with the healthy and the not healthy
Uh-huh.
circles.
Uh-huh.
Um yeah, I all of that relates to relationships that aren't intimate either, but they're still important relationships. So I thought that was interesting. I mean, it makes sense, but it's just the correlation, you know?
Yeah, uh making friends and having that intimacy, like I said, it's not just gender based, but if you're going to have an intimate relationship with a friend and someone, you have to get to that outer circle, but you have to contend with those two inner circles because it's if okay, if you still dealing with if you're a person that wants control, it doesn't matter if it's building it with uh, a friend or if you're building with your spouse, you still want control. So you'll try to control Athena, you'll try to control QJ, you'll try to control your coworkers, it's just part of who you are. And so dealing with the control issue so that you can get healthy is going to help in all of your relationships, not just your girl guy relationships or guy girl relationships. It's going to help you all around. That's how come that internal conflict with ourselves and intimacy with God to start healing those areas is so important because you can't expect your friends and your neighbors and your boyfriend and your girlfriend, they can help iron some stuff out or really magnifying those things. But you really have to struggle with it with God to want to address it and desire for it to be gone. And then that's when it goes because you're working on getting it out of there. And you can test it through your friends, through your coworkers, through your whatever to see how better you're getting healed and moving to that outer circle. So, yes, definitely. Because all of those problems are problems in you, not you personally, but you know what I mean, in us that we have to want healthy relationships. So we have to stop isolating. We have to stop being insecure. And when we get out of those circles, we can start having healthy, intimate relationships with people. For sure. Good observation. Anything else? Father, thank you for the day. We thank you for everything that you're doing in our life and through our life. We do love you. We honor, we praise and glorify and magnify you. We pray for those that are in traveling states and other meetings that they're doing, that you would just watch over and keep them and let them get to their destination. And we love you. We honor, praise and glorify and magnify you. In Jesus' name, amen. Well, happy early
Amen.
birthday, Pauline. You're going to be 87. Way to go. Whoop, whoop, whoop. All right, everyone. Love
Happy
you.
birthday.